Moving on to markets now, and according to our next guest, the October 22nd Cattle on Feed report, which showed September placement at 97% of last year, was slightly friendly for the cattle industry. Joining me now to discuss that and more is Oklahoma State University Livestock Marketing Specialist Derrell Peel. Derrell, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today.
You bet. Happy to be here.
Now, let's get things started by getting your take on the recent Cattle on Feed report.
Yeah, this report, the placements did come in a little bit smaller than expected in this October cattle on feed report. So, I think that's a little bit friendly in terms of the overall numbers. The on-feed total for October 1st was down nearly 2% year over year. And this is the fourth month in a row of declining feedlot inventories compared to last year. So we are making some progress in pulling these feedlot inventories down.
And Derrell, when you're examining these placement numbers, what does that tell you about where producers stand so far this fall?
Well, it's been a long, slow grind this summer to try to get a little bit improved situation, if you will, in the fed cattle market. And I think when you look at the weight distribution in not only in this last report, but really the several months prior to that, you start to see why it's been kind of a slow grind to make some progress here. We've had a lot of heavyweight placements. We've kind of kept the feedlots sort of front loaded this year, and we're still working through that. And so we've had just lots of ready cattle up against the ability to process those cattle.
Now, I've heard you comment that we may be getting close to flipping the leverage between producers and packers. However, it appears we're seeing a tight race between the number of cattle available and the total amount of capacity for packer labor. Can I get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you bet. It has been a real challenge this year with the packing capacity constraints. And of course, the longer the year's gone on, we relied so much early in the year on Saturday kills and so on to maintain that. And that's been hard to do as we get through the year. So we've kind of got the capacity constraint staying pretty tight at the same time that we're just slowly making some progress on the fed cattle number side. And so I don't think we're quite there yet. These numbers would suggest to me that we've still got a little ways to go, but I think we're getting closer. And as we finish out this year, probably by the time we get into December, I think we'll see this thing really start to change tone a little bit.
Now, Derrell, I've been seeing a lot of reports lately on cattle producers taking matters of packing into their own hands with proposed independent packing plants. How far do you see this kind of strategy going? Could this be the new normal? And how could a venture like this truly impact the meatpacking industry as a whole?
Well, obviously we've been through an awful lot of stress the last couple of years, and it's really capitalized on or sort of manifested itself by the fact that the overall packing industry downsized over the last 20 years. And then as we've reached cyclically peak numbers, we've bumped up against that, and that's caused some real strain in the industry. So, these initiatives now to add some packing capacity from these, producer-driven, mid-sized kind of things is going to help a little bit if we're able to follow through on those and get those in line. I don't know that it's a major change in the overall situation. And of course, we've got to recognize that we are now actually liquidating cattle numbers. So we're going to see the numbers fall a little bit in the coming years. But, it's all part of, there's certainly a need for some additional infrastructure investment in the cattle industry as we go forward. So, this could definitely be part of that.
And speaking of future numbers, looking at the long term here, how has the recent drought endured by producers around the United States impacted our calving cycle? Do these latest cattle on feed numbers shine any sort of light on where beef cow numbers will stand come January?
We've been watching the drought all year in terms of what it might be doing to our longer term trajectory for cattle numbers. Obviously, we've been watching cow slaughter in terms of indications for herd liquidation, and it certainly appears that we have that. This latest cattle on feed report was also a quarterly report, and we get a breakdown of steers and heifers on feed. And interestingly enough, the October 1 heifers on feed actually ticked back up just a little bit from last year. It was down in July. The steer numbers were down in July and in October. But the fact that these heifer numbers are up a little bit in this October report may be an indication that some of those heifers that were originally intended to be replacement heifers for the breeding herd have been redirected now into the feedlots. And so that's probably one more reason why it's taken a little longer to sort of pull these feedlot numbers down.
And as we're currently sitting in the fourth quarter of the 2021 fiscal year, is there any marketing or risk management strategies that producers should start to consider?
Well, obviously, we've been through a tremendous amount of volatility, and I don't know that that's completely over at this point. So there's always a reason for producers to think about risk management. I do think in general we're moving into perhaps a little bit more relative stability. That is to say, with the industry kind of focusing on its sort of normal dynamics as opposed to some of these external shocks unless something else jumps up. So, but nevertheless, producers I think can sort of think about what their longer term goals are here, in terms of their own operations and start to, kind of come back to those plans and move forward. And part of that consideration certainly should be, where they need to be in terms of managing risk.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Derrell, thank you so much for joining us this week.
You bet. Happy to be here.